Oh, shit. Are you serious? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That we met in person before online.
Mhm.
Like that, I feel like is not super common in our space. And I
Yeah.
just think that's kind of fun. Like we got to know each other actually in person before like Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because usually it's like you're meeting people on Instagram or in the
Yeah.
business space or whatever.
Mhm.
And then you meet in person, you're like, oh my God, my internet besties. But yeah, we were
Yeah.
the total opposite, which is almost like how, the real world was prior to social media of just like actually meeting
Yeah.
people. And now we're friends online. It's super cool. Before I get into who you are, Kellie, I need to know why, in God's name, you decided to get certified jumping out of planes. Please
Oh my gosh.
tell us what made you want to do that because it's fucking cool and hella brave.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So I guess just a little backstory. I mean, in my skydiving journey, when I turned 18, that was like the first thing that I wanted to do. So my dad and I actually went skydiving and I was like, whoa, like this is so cool. Like he did a solo skydive when he was younger and I always wanted to do it. And then I went, tandem skydiving when I was 18 and then went about my life, didn't think about it again. And then I went into a really crappy relationship where I just kind of lost all control. I guess, let's get deep real quick.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh,
the
we're
meaning
gonna get there.
Yeah. The meaning behind why I actually started skydiving was because I wanted to feel powerful again and feel that sense of like control, like I was in the driver's seat again. So, I went skydiving again on a whim for my 27th birthday. I did it tandem and there was someone there and I was completely alone. So I just called them up the day before and I was like, do you guys have any spots open? And they're like, yeah, you can come tomorrow morning. And I was like, great, see you there. And I went and there was some people that were training to do skydive certifications. And I was like, I didn't even know like you could
Wow.
really do that. And so I was like, hi, like, do you guys do that? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, cool, I'll be back. So I like it just started as a way for me to feel back in control because really when you're skydiving, if you don't pull the chute, I mean,
Yeah.
like it's not it'll open because they have devices for that. But it was really just like I was so out of control with my life and my relationships and things like that it made me feel so powerful and so strong. And that's kind of, I guess, why I got started in it.
That is so crazy. Do you jump like on a certain schedule or is it like, now that you're certified, can you go whenever? Like, how does that work?
So I actually am not certified yet because of a couple different reasons. So I actually had a bit of a skydiving accident, I would say,
Stop.
where where I landed totally. The brakes weren't on my chute properly, and so when I was like, they call it flaring. So when I like pulled down on the toggles to slow down, they didn't slow down. So I just like kind of smashed into the ground. I broke my toe. I like hyperextended my knee. I'm still like, I can't bend my knee like completely. So then I kind of stopped and then winter happened. And so now that it's starting to warm up, I'm like trying to decide when to get back into it. But yeah, so I have like 10 more jumps until I'm fully certified because you need 25.
Holy shit. Well, that's like the perfect conversation starter at a bar. Like, hi, I'm Kellie. I've jumped out of a plane 25 fucking times. You're like, are you in like the army? You're like, no, I just have a business and jump out of planes. It's super cool. No, I loved that. And I had to ask you because I remember when you shared it on Instagram and I was super inspired just because not knowing, I kind of had an idea because we had talked whenever we met, just like maybe that was part of the reason why of like leaving that relationship. But I was super inspired of it just because you are in your late 20s and you're deciding to do something out of nowhere, or whether it was, kind of like mold on. It's just really cool to remind ourselves that like, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can try something new, whether you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 60 or what have you. Like there's nothing stopping you from just enjoying things or trying new hobbies. Like it's crazy how we encourage children to do it, but then we don't do it ourselves. We kind of just get stuck in these like, patterns and we don't ever explore.
100%. Yeah. And before that, I traveled abroad for a little bit before that, and I went to Croatia and I got scuba certified. And then when I got home, I was like, I'm going to get skydiving certified. And I just kind of became like this, not adrenaline junkie, but like I just got addicted to feeling powerful and in control and like getting these certifications and like trying new things and learning new things. And I was like, oh my gosh, like why did we ever, like you said, as adults, like why did we ever stop doing that? I feel like when we do hobbies or we get certifications, it's only for the advancement of our careers or our, you know, friendships or, you know, family, but we never do it out of enjoyment and like just being
Curiosity.
a kid again and learning. Yeah. So that's kind of what I kind of live my life now, because I started like tattooing. I started, you know, just doing all these random things because I am not scared of being like a beginner again. So I love it. So I think that everyone should continue to explore things and learn new things.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like being a beginner again, because we think like once you hit a certain age or income level or career path, like you have to know everything. You have to know it all. You have to have all the answers. And it's like, why can't we just be a beginner, be curious, be kids, like have fun, explore? Like it's okay to do that. And it's honestly super exciting. So I love that you kind of bring that to light, and also in your business, because it's like super cool watching you from the sidelines of just how like you show that in your life of like, let's just like enjoy life. I think it's very what's the word, like it kind of leaks out into your audience, because I get excited. I'm like, I want to go scuba diving. I hate the water. I'm like, let's go, Kellie. I'm gonna come see you and let's go adventure.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, my goal with life is just not take it too seriously. And like I want everyone around me to feel the same way. Like I have goals, you know, I want to make money. I'm, you know, serious about so many things in my life, but when I get together with my friends, I don't want to just be like drinking all the time, or I don't want to just be like talking about finances all the time. I'm like, let's go climb that random mountain we've been looking at every time we drive by. And like, I just want, like when you say it kind of like seeps out, like I do want that, like, I want to give people permission to be a beginner again, I guess.
I love that. So you mentioned in just now the relationship you had left and kind of how you felt like you lost control. I would love to like go into that topic if you're comfortable with it. And I know like when we first met, you were kind of in the thick of it. So I think it's gonna be really cool to just like hear you on the other side now, like a year out from where you were. And I haven't really talked about relationships a ton on the podcast yet, just because I haven't had the opportunity. And so I would love to just kind of hear like what your story has looked like leaving that relationship. And then hopefully we can kind of talk about, you know, if there are women listening who are in a relationship like that, or men, whatever it may be, right? How can we kind of like spot the signs and like what have you learned from that? So wherever you want to start and feel comfortable, I would love to get into it. Like we can even go with just like now, like how much has changed since then?
Yeah. So I guess just a little backstory and we'll kind of scooch around. But so I was in a really not great relationship with this man who was just very controlling. And it started, we're just going to kind of, I'm going to downplay it a little bit just because I don't want to get too serious about things. But it started like verbal, you know, abuse, I guess, and manipulation and all that stuff. And then I let that happen for too long. And then it slowly transitioned into more of the physical stuff and more of the like scary controlling, to where it wasn't like, oh, he's yelling at me. It's like, oh, I'm actually like scared he's going to hit me, or he's going to spit in my face again, or, you know, that kind. And I mean, if you know me, if you knew me before, I was never the kind of person that would let that happen. Like when people found out, they were like, you, like what? And I'm like, people don't understand that literally anyone can find themselves stuck in a situation like that. And this man came in and rocked my world in the worst way possible. And I lost so many friends over it. I lost my dogs over it. I lost I had to sell my house because of it. Like it was just like a domino effect. And when I say had to, I don't mean like, obviously he was like forcing me to, but to keep the peace, I had to do so many things. So I was basically just a shell of who I once was. And all I was focusing on day in and day out was keeping the peace. So I would stop working. Like he would yell at me for working too much. My relationship with my mom and my dad, who they're my best friends, went to shit. And it was just like, I lost everyone and I lost my sense of myself. And so eventually he, went to the other side of the country with all my stuff, and I had to find a way to get all that back.
Jesus.
So I flew from California to West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, that kind of area. And in the dead of the night, in a snowstorm, went and got all my stuff back, hooked up my trailer, because we were living in like a trailer traveling the world at that time, the country, at that time. So and he was not there because he was, staying with another woman. So I was able to get all my stuff back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, of course. So I was able to, in like the dead of the night, get all my stuff back. But I swear that was, just long story short, that relationship was really only 6 months long. But it ruined me financially. It ruined me emotionally. Like, I basically left that relationship almost bankrupt. I left that relationship literally so thin because I was so anxious and my hair was falling out. I was like a shell of who I was. And then I moved. Once that all happened, I got away from him, la-di-da. I went to Vegas to live with a friend for a little bit, and then decided to travel around for a little bit. And that's kind of where we met, because I went on that retreat in Florida and decided that I was going to start taking control of my life again. And so at that retreat where we met, I was still like a shell of who I was. And that week was actually really, really hard for me because I wasn't used to having people around me again. I wasn't used to like talking to people and, having, I don't know, a life
people
of my
care
own again.
kind of too.
Totally.
I'm not that people didn't care about you before, but you had been so alienated that you couldn't like feel that care or love from the people who did care
100%.
about you. So when you were at the retreat, like even like Ariel and everyone, just I could sense that sense of like overwhelm of just like, oh my God, people are actually like being kind and like aren't yelling, or like they're caring about me, and like there's peace like that exists,
Yeah. And it was like coming into my life again. Like, I was like, okay, now I'm back in my driver's seat of my life. Like, whoa, I don't know what to do. I'm so out of practice with that. I'm so out of practice with having friends. I'm so out of practice with like not being told what to do every day. And then it's just kind of like, I think of that retreat as kind of like my starting point again. Because then from there I went and I traveled Europe for 2 months by myself. And then I came home and kind of just started rebuilding my life. And so that's when skydiving started happening. That's when I got, my certification with scuba diving was after that all happened. And I was starting to realize that I was back in the driver's seat and figuring out what the heck to do. And I was just really all over the road. I was like, I don't know. I'm going here. I'm going here. I'm like hanging out with this person. I'm going to take up this new hobby, because I was just like,
freedom.
I don't know. Freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just rebuilding my life. And then now I feel 100% healed. I mean, there's obviously PTSD involved, and like, talking to other people, the prospect of getting in a relationship. I'm like, whoa, like I'm scared. I've built up my walls and protected myself for so long that now that's my struggle, is like letting my walls down for other people who I know I can trust, because it's just, there's a lot that goes into all that stuff. Totally. So that's where I'm at now. I feel healed, but now it's a matter of like softening a little bit to let people back in.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said. And I love that you put in there, like, I would never have been the one to be in that relationship, because no one ever thinks it's going to be them. It doesn't matter how, strong, brave, insert adjective here, any of us can be in an abusive relationship with a parent, with a partner, with a friend, with a boss, with whatever situation. So I think that's really helpful that you said that, because it does take the guilt out of like, why me? Or like, why, I don't want people to think I was the one in the relationship that was being, like it's this like victim mentality, when it's like, it is not that at all. Like, there is some serious manipulation people can do in those situations. And it's not to be like taken lightly. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that, but I am curious to hear like what, I know it was a short time that felt long, but like, what was the final kind of like straw that made you realize I do need to get out of this? Like, what was that? Was there a sign, or was it kind of just like over time?
So yeah, I went to, so we were traveling in a trailer. kind of trying to do like the van life nomad thing, which was the worst situation I could possibly be in with this man. And it was hell the whole time. And I like look at trailers now going down the road and I'm like, oh my God. like
Also, like the
you know,
stories, like what's the girl that got murdered by her
Gabby
dude?
Petito. That happened
Yeah, like
literally
that's like
a
a
week
same
before.
story. What
At the
fuck?
same exact time. I know. And so yeah, we were in Colorado and we were in this huge fight and it was so bad. And it got to the point where I called my parents who didn't know anything up to this point, and I was like, I need help to get me out of the situation. And then I got them all freaked out. I got, that was like the tipping point. And then we decided, we woke up in the morning, everything was more calm. We decided that I was going to go to California to spend Thanksgiving with my parents, and he was going to go to Kentucky to spend time with his son. And then the second we separated, I flew home. He took the truck and trailer. He ghosted me. I didn't hear from him at all whatsoever. And I was spiraling. Like, I was in my parents' house around Thanksgiving, could not get out of bed. I was physically nauseous 24/7. And my parents literally were like, okay, Kellie, we have to go to grandma's house. It's Thanksgiving. You got to get up. And I was like, I don't want to. And my mom, we were joking. I don't know if we can talk about this in the podcast.
Anything.
About I don't know if it's legally allowed.
Oh,
but
I'm like, well, fuck. Well, I'm gonna get a lawyer on the phone. I'm just kidding.
Marijuana is legal in California, and my mom was like, okay, we either need to do this or we need to do something to get you calm enough to get out of bed. And so I went to Thanksgiving dinner at my sweet grandmother's house.
High as fuck.
Literally you see the pictures and I'm and I just look back and I could cry right now even thinking back at it. I was broken at that point. And then I decided all of my stuff is in that trailer and that truck. That's everything I own to my name because I sold my house. I had $20,000 in the safe in that truck. And I knew the second he ghosted me that he stole that $20,000. And he made me take out that $20,000 before going.
As
he could have
money
an emergency fund.
Jesus Christ.
Looking back, I'm like, you stupid idiot. Why did you do that? But yeah, so then I'm sitting in the Houston airport because I'm trying to fly back to go get my stuff. And I get a text from one of his friends who was ending up kind of being my friend. And he was like, oh, how are you? I'm so sorry to hear about everything. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, the guy I'm with was at the mall with his ex and they're holding hands. And I heard you guys broke up. And I heard, that he, you guys just aren't compatible and he's moving on with his life and he's taking, the camper to live in. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is all news to me because he has not talked to me this whole time. So I immediately in that mode changed every password to everything. I kind of came up with a plan. I was like, I'm going to get all my stuff back. I'm just straight up in SWAT mode of oh. And then he called me and it was the worst call. And I still have it recorded for legal purposes, just in case. And he's basically telling me that I'm the worst person alive, that he hopes I die, that he hopes that I understand what's coming to me and la, la, la. And there's so much of this communication once he found out that I was
done.
Game on, bye, I'm getting my stuff back. That was just so many threats. And then that's kind of where I think my powers started to come back. I was in that hotel room and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, game on. Let's go. This is what I needed. I had to hear that he was cheating. I had to hear that he was being this piece of shit. Otherwise I would have gone back to him. I truly think if he hadn't cheated, I would have stayed with him. And so at the time I was devastated, but now I'm thank God he cheated on me with his ex, because if he hadn't, I don't know if I would have been strong enough to get out of it.
That was what you needed to clear the fog, to be wait 100%. A second, my glasses are totally dark here. What the fuck am I doing?
I was what have I been doing? Yeah. And I called my best friend and I was like, okay, this is what's going on. You need to know. And I need to tell you so you make sure I don't go back to him. And I just unloaded everything. I sent her the video of him screaming at me, and no one knew any of this stuff. No one knew that he was abusive. No one knew that he what I was posting on Instagram. I was like, oh my God, I love my life. Like, we're having so much
Yeah.
fun. I love my life.
Right.
And so she was like, what the actual fuck? Like, had no idea. And I was like, now you do. And I need you to kind of carry me through this and like stay with me while I do this. And she was like, absolutely, like 100%. And so the second I told her, I was like, okay, this is real. Like, I'm getting out of this.
Yeah. No,
So.
I have had multiple like guests on the podcast that have gone through all different kinds of like hard things. And that's always been like, when I asked them, like, what was the turning point, or what was the, like, what made you get help, or like, what made you ask, you know, for whatever. And it's like having someone there that I knew I could trust. And I think that is like so important, of like making sure that those people and relationships we do have in our life, whether it's a parent or a friend or a partner or a childhood friend or a, you know, a cousin, whatever it is, that we keep those relationships close, because those are the people that are going to be like, I got you when shit's on fire. Like, they're like, hop on my back, let's go. And so the fact that you're able to get to that point, that's where I'm always like highlighting, is like, if you're struggling with something, you just have to get to the point where you can say help, and then like you will get the help you need, whether it's professional or with people around you. We just have to speak up. And I'm so glad that you were
100%.
able to like have those relationships around you to carry you through that, because I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. It's the lonelier you are, the more likely you're going to get stuck in that trap of, this is my person. Where am I going to go? What am I supposed to do? Like, if I don't have anyone. And that's what, I mean, he was trying to do. I lost so many friends. I almost lost I mean, I would never lose my parents, I don't think, but
Your relationship
went to shit. Totally. And like, that was his goal. Like, he wanted me to feel alone. And like, I didn't have anyone else, because when that was the case, he was all I had. So
it's interesting you bring that up too, because I feel like I resonate with that. Like, when I was going through after my divorce, I went through like a really dark period. And it's like, not that I was in an abusive relationship, but I think like that same sense of loneliness is what led me to like a lot of destruction in my life in other ways, and like bad choices and just like situations where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And it wasn't until I realized, because I had alienated myself from people. And for you, it was like someone had caused it to you. For me, it was like choices I had made that led me to be alienated. And it was like that sense of, I need accountability. Like, we need people around us who, when there is shit going down, they can spot the signs, or they can, when they finally do see it, step in. So I think it's interesting you say that, because I'm like, it doesn't have to be an abusive relationship. It could be anything where we, you know, alienate ourselves and cut out people in our life, is when we start seeing like struggles come up, or dealing with shit, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
So what do you feel like now that you are kind of like in this season? It's been so cool to watch you, like, ever since I met you, because I kind of knew your story then at the retreat when you had shared, but obviously I didn't know you prior. So it's always cool meeting people when they're like in the middle of a transition, because you're like, oh my God, you get to see it, right? So like, I've literally watched you in the past year, like, just even in your business has like grown, and like, you're just so like, your personality is so evident. So what do you feel like has been something positive that has come out of this? Like, obviously you've mentioned this freedom and sense of control, but like, what's maybe something you've discovered about yourself that you didn't really think about prior to this experience?
I would say truly that I think I could do anything and get through anything. Like, nothing scares me anymore. When I was like about to jump out of the airplane, I was like, and he's like, are you good? Like, there's a video of me. He's like, you good? Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally fine. Like, I've been through worse. Like, nothing scares me anymore. And like, because there's nothing that I don't think I can get through. And there's no hole that I don't think I can dig myself out of. And so just kind of finding my strength and like really figuring out who I am was the biggest blessing throughout all of this. Cause now I'm like, I'm strong AF. I'm not going to put up with that bullshit. I'm not going to like let this person walk over me. And I have people in, you know, my industry who are like, how do you do it? Like, how do you put up with all these clients that are like mean, or how do you put up with, you know, imposter syndrome or whatever? And I'm like, I don't like, you just got to let shit roll, because there's so many other worse things that could happen. And it's so much easier to just stand strong in yourself and know what you deserve and know your worth. And now I do. And I don't think I'll ever let that go. So that has been 100% the biggest blessing throughout all this.
I love that. That is, and that's such a good message too, of just like, knowing that value and knowing that worth, even if you haven't been through something like a traumatic, like an abusive relationship or what have you. Like, I think that confidence and knowing that value carries into everything. Apparently, I mean, look at you, like, just even seeing you on the internet, I can see this change in you. And I think when we finally can find that confidence and just learn how to like grow it, right? Because it's not going to be immediate. Even for you, I'm sure it's been like a process of learning to love yourself and learning to like trust yourself, right? right? But I think it's just like little tiny baby steps. So I'm excited for you too, to watch you keep killing it, which brings me to my next thing I want to talk about is your new podcast.
Yeah, I do have a new podcast.
Why are you laughing? Like, you're like, wait, do I have a podcast?
It's so weird because I mean, it's not like this, like your podcast where it's like, you know, so many different,
I mean, but it's different, but it's still a freaking podcast. I was already looking at your, like, you know, your content and I'm like, oh my God, I'm obsessed.
So, yeah, I guess for those of you who don't know me, I have a finance podcast with my dad. And so basically it's like a conversation between me and my dad about getting financially secure. And it's like, we always joke because it's like when I was younger and he was trying to like lecture me on like, you need to get your finances in order. You need to do X, Y, Z. We were always like on a walk or like, you know, that was like our bonding time was like on a hike or a walk. And that's where all of my like business decisions and things like that came to fruition. And now he lives in Portugal, so we can't have those business talks anymore. So now we just do them on the podcast. And I think it's really beneficial because it's like I'm the blind leading the blind, and my dad's just like the flashlight trying to like navigate us to getting, you know, financially secure, figuring out what to do with our money and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been really fun, but it's definitely been a learning curve trying to figure out how the heck to podcast.
Dude, podcasting pisses me off sometimes because like I'm not an audio expert, and the amount of times I've had to like fucking redo stuff, I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. I just love that it's your dad because like I was telling you earlier, when I don't know if I was recording by then, but my dad's and my relationship is absolute shit. So anytime I see a woman with a dad and they're like bonding, I'm just like, I get like emotional because I'm like, it's beautiful. So like you and your dad are super close, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Are you an only child?
Parents. No, I have a sister.
Okay.
She's a little older than me, but yeah, my whole family's super, super close. So yeah.
So is he like a financial expert, or is it really kind of just like y'all's life conversations?
It's really just life conversations. So he was a like VP of marketing and sales, and he has a degree in economics. So he's very versed in the finance world, and he retired at 55. So like he's very on top of his finances. But it really is just like when we talk about the podcast, it's not like, oh, okay, this is how you're going to get rich. This is how, you know, it's not like stock market bro talk. It's like a dad trying to teach her daughter or his daughter who's finally ready to get her finances in order. Like, this is what you should do. This is how mortgages work. This is what your credit score is. So it's like me trying to just figure out my shit. And then I'm just kind of bringing everyone along. And so it's like a dad conversation.
Yeah. No, it's perfect because it's like layman's terms, right? Because sometimes I just had an incredible advisor on my podcast this past week, but thankfully the episode wasn't super like literate heavy, like talking financial terms and all of that. But it is such a like a confusing conversation, especially if you're like listening to experts sometimes, because you're like, I don't understand the language. Like I need to study or whatever. So I like that you're just having these like super chill, down to earth, like, hey, I'm just going to chat with my dad about this subject that we should all have learned when we were children anyways, right?
Yeah. I mean, I learned it as a kid and I just didn't listen. So now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to learn again. So here I am. Especially now because after all that stuff, I lost so much money with that last relationship that could have set me up for early retirement and everything. And I just fumbled the ball on all of it. And I'm like, I'm never going to like just kind of skirt through life with my finances, even not knowing things. So I'm like, I want complete control over my life. And so I went to my dad and I was like, I'm ready to start investing. I'm opening a Roth IRA. Like, I'm like, let's go. Yeah.
So do you feel like since all of that, because you've kind of mentioned like the finances and like all these things, do you have like any anxiety after that relationship, like that manifest at all in different ways? Or do you feel like you've kind of gotten past that stage?
Like in general?
Yeah, like just thinking about like I would be shit scared that like I would go bankrupt again. I'd be like, oh my God, I have to hoard my money now because what if I get like, I don't know. I would just instantly, because I'm a very like I go straight to the worst case possible. It's like a terrible thing I do. I'm just like the worst case. So have you had to deal with any of that like anxiousness with decision making now?
Yes. So, I mean, I was just listening to a podcast the other day that said that the human brain is kind of naturally wired to go to the worst case scenario. And you have to actively like climb your way out of that in order to think positively and like not have those thoughts kind of always going through your mind. So that's what I really try to do, especially with money.
Mm.
But I've had so much money and I've had no money and I've always been
Right.
okay. So at the end of the day, like if I'm paying my bills, if I'm putting food on the table, I think I'm okay. And last year, it wasn't my year of like, oh, I'm going to make so much money. I'm going to like grow my business. It was like, I'm going to get back to me and I'm going to feel okay again. And I'm going to make the bare minimum that will help me maintain that lifestyle. And now I'm starting to kind of gear up again and welcome money back into my life and really start revving up. But before, for the longest time, I didn't even think about money in regards to like, I need more or I'm scared. I was just like, as long as I have X amount in my bank account and I'm making X amount, I'm okay. And I'm not going to think about it. And like, I know that if it did dip below or if I, started losing all my money, I figured it out before and I can figure it out again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. It made me I think a little bit more resilient with money.
Yeah. That's really a really good way to think about it, because I struggle a lot with like anxious thoughts. Like I've always had really bad anxiety, and it's always different, like depending on like what season it is. Now like my anxiousness is always about my kids and like what's going to happen to them and stuff like that. But I like how you said specifically like you have to actively, and I know you said that was from another podcast, but actively get out of it, because it's so true. If you just sit and wallow in negativity, it will eat you up so fast. Like you will just continue to go down like that dark freaking path of like worst case scenario. And then it becomes your reality because you're not doing anything about it. So I think that how you mentioned like the active part, not just like, actively doing things in your life to bring you, to your goals, but really with your mind, like starting with just actively thinking better thoughts or working around those. That was even just kind of impactful for me of thinking that way. Cause sometimes I do be like, oh, and then I just let the brain run and I don't even try to be like, okay, that was silly. What's really going to happen? Okay, if that did happen, here's what I could do, A, B, C, D, and I would be fine, like you said. So that was cool that you mentioned that.
Thanks.
So last kind of thing I would love to dive into is like you've done a lot of traveling and you did a lot of solo traveling, which I am obsessed with. I only got to do it a couple of times because I was only single for 1 year. Literally was in a relationship 15 to 21, single for 1 year, and then got knocked up by the guy in the other room. So I traveled like that year I was single a couple of times by myself, but never like different countries, different languages. Like what has that been like?
Oh, it was, So I studied abroad in college. So I went to Italy. So I kind of got the taste of like what it's like to kind of live in a foreign country. And then I decided after that retreat, when I was in the thick of everything, I was like, okay, I really need to get outside my comfort zone and like in a way that I can control. So it's like, I don't know. I always say that, going to a foreign country for 2 months was probably not like the smartest thing when I was trying to rebuild my life, when I was anxious about, being on my own again. But it was like having that control again that made it so cool. And so I went to Portugal and Croatia. I've been to Spain and Italy and Morocco, and I've been to like, just so many places. And I was like, everyone is the same around the world. And I think that we're all in it together. You know what I mean? But like, it's like, if I needed help, I could find someone. And it was like, even when you're completely alone, you're never completely alone. And I think that was like my favorite part about traveling, was being able to reconnect with myself and push myself to like learn new languages. And, I went scuba diving with someone who didn't speak English. And I was like, is this really the smartest thing to do?
No, never in my life.
We literally, but if you think about it, when you're scuba diving, you're not relying on hand signals. Yeah. And so it was just so cool. Cause I was like, this man and I can only communicate with like hand signals. And I was like, this is so cool because it just gave me
I would shit myself, Kellie.
It just, there was one time when I was like, what am I doing? But I don't know. It's just like throwing myself into all those situations was so cool. And I just really recommend, if you can, whether you're a man, a woman, young, old, whatever, if you can take a solo trip, do it. My first solo trip was to Zion National Park. I went camping by myself and I literally was scared shitless the whole time. I had my, at the time, boyfriend's gun. This is a different boyfriend. And I was like, I don't even know how to use this. What if someone comes and attacks me? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it just stayed in my trunk the whole time. But that was like kind of like my first introduction to solo traveling. And it was addicting. And I was like, how cool. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And yeah, it's just like another sense of like power. Like you think you can get through anything. And so if you can in your life, I recommend, even if it's like a weekend trip away, or staycation away, whatever, just gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit. I highly recommend it.
I need to do one of those. I haven't had it. I mean, when I went to the retreat last year, technically that wasn't a solo trip, but I like stayed the day after by myself, but it really wasn't like a solo trip. So I haven't been on one in forever. And I'm really excited to do it eventually, now that I'm like a totally different person. Like I was single and didn't have kids and like newly divorced and like young. And now I'm like, I feel like if I went on a trip now, it would just be so relaxing and rejuvenating. But one thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about that, because it's like this thing has been, you keep bringing up like power and like taking back your freedom. And it's reminding me of like, it's almost like if we can just get uncomfortable for a minute outside of our daily schedule and four walls and the same people in the same neighborhood and the same things we do all the time, if we can just like get uncomfortable, if it's rock climbing, if it's skydiving, if it's traveling to Morocco, if it's even just like going on a bike ride and you don't ever ride bikes, like doing the uncomfortable thing, I think will always uncover something about ourselves we didn't know, or something we wanted to get past, or we're able to finally like get to the next level. But so many of us, like, we don't want to be comfortable or we don't want to be uncomfortable. We just want to sit and be like good with our complacency. And so I love that you've made this like mission, although it is about freedom and all of this, like you've committed to like, I'm willing to be uncomfortable if it means that I can be better, like be a better human, be a better business owner, a better daughter, like whatever. So I'm super inspired by that.
Yeah. And I mean, that was kind of my mission for last year. I was like, I just want to be as uncomfortable while still, being comfortable and not in that kind of like shitty situation again. But like every month I was like, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to do something totally different, because I truly got addicted to feeling strong and like being kind of in my masculine energy. And really allowing myself to not worry about other people. Like, oh, is this going to offend someone? Oh, is this like, this might be weird because I'm the only girl right now skydiving. And I was like, nah, fuck that. Like, I'm doing this for me. And it was kind of like my selfish year. And while I'm kind of out of that selfish year now, I think that we all do need to have selfish moments where we just focus on ourselves and what makes us feel powerful, because we lose ourselves so much in our businesses, our friendships, our relationships, our children, that we kind of forget who we are and what we actually like, and what makes us feel strong and happy and powerful. And I don't think anyone should ever give that up for anyone, even if you do love that person. So that's kind of my thought process on that.
Mic drop. That was it right there, girl. That was the quote. This has been so incredible. You're just definitely like an inspiration, I think, for just people to live how they want to live and experience things. And I'm excited to see you continue to grow. But for those who don't really know you, like, can you tell them a little bit about what you do in your business, where they can find you? You have a tattoo company. Like, what are all the things you have going on so we can like keep up with you and like stay connected?
Yeah. So my main business is a website design, branding design business. It's called Kellie Lynn Media. And then I also have a tattoo design business and a finance podcast. So the tattoo business is called Tiny Tat Co.
So cute.
The business podcast, or the finance podcast, is called the What You Keep podcast, because it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. But other than that, I hang out with me like on either of those three platforms. You're going to get me in any of those situations. So I'm pretty open about everything, life in general. So none of those are just solely focused on tattoos or, finance or design. It's all just kind of life stuff. So come hang out.
I love it. Well, is there anything else you want to leave my listeners with? Any last thoughts?
No, I mean, really take everything I said to heart, honestly. And like, just know that if you're in a bad situation, if you are in a situation where you feel like you've lost control, the best thing to do is reach out to someone, even if that person is like me. If you need to DM me, I always say when I talk about my journey, my situation, I'm always like, if you need someone, even if we don't know each other, like I'll be that person for you. I'll be your advocate. I'll fight for you. So if no one in your life is fighting for you, like let me fight for you. So that's kind of, this is a safe space with me. Obviously it's
I
a safe
piggyback
space
that
with Taylor too. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes too, it's like telling someone who has no bias, who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family. It's
100%.
really nice. Like that's like therapy, right? Like that's exactly what you do when you talk to a therapist. So yeah, if you're listening and you're just like, I just need to vent, like that is exactly why I'm here, why I bring people like Kellie on. Kellie, I know that's why like you're just, creating the community you are in all of your businesses and endeavors. And so thanks for leaving us with that. And we'll have to have you back on. Once you get certified, we're going to have you back on so we can talk all the fucking crazy shit. We should go down some like Reddit threads on like crazy adrenaline junkie shit and be like, would you do this? Yes or no? I'd be interested to see.
Yes to all of it. I'll do it all.
Everything is going to be a no for me. No. I had one like terrible, I'll finish the story. I had one terrible experience in Mexico. I love water, but I'm like a pool, lake, river kind of girl. Like I grew up in Texas, like I'm like an outdoorsy, but like oceans, fuck no. So one time I was in Mexico and I was with my ex-husband and we went to this like kind of like one of those theme parks that's like outdoors and there's like, like cave swimming and like all these different like themed excursions. And we went in this like underground cave. It wasn't like you were underwater, but you were like, up to here. You were in like, life jackets and shit. And we're in this cave and I'm like really having a hard time. Like I like can't breathe already. Like I'm super nervous and we're swimming and I'm like, I'm tall. I'm like 5'9". I can touch. Most people can't touch. And then all of a sudden my feet dropped because there was a massive cave hole under the water. And I swear to God, I have never been so panicked. They had to rescue me, Kellie. They had to send the rescue teams because I couldn't, I was thrashing. And then all of a sudden, like it came out to a waterfall. So I'm like trying to get out and there's like water and I like can't see it. Probably the most embarrassing. This kid's like, Mom, what's wrong with that girl? I'm like, I don't fucking know.
They're like, don't do drugs, kids. She's fine.
Yeah, they're like, she's on cocaine. All right. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's my one. I did like a scuba something too, like in the corals, and that was okay. I was fine with that because it was like you could see the bottom. But yeah, water is not going to be for me ever. But maybe I'll come. Maybe we do need to go to like Vegas or something and do some cool, I don't know, mountain shit. I like heights. I could do heights.
Well, we have I'm in Vegas now, so we have lots of mountains and like that here. So
yeah, I see you always posting at the Social Bungalows spot. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I love that. I love her. Shannon, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kellie. I'm going to end it here. I'm going to have you back.